everyone. We are going to spend a little bit of time talking about line plots today. Line plots are the only style of graph that we actually are going to be looking at this year in great detail. So to start with, I just want to go over the parts of a line plot. The first thing you need in a line plot is a title, and we're going to talk about what that looks like. You also need X's for your number line. Again, we'll talk about that in a second. A number line labeled with your numbers, and then the label or unit in which you are measuring. So a line plot is utilized as a way to show data that's measured numerically. So it could be weight, it could be length, it should be the quantity of something you have. So in this instance, we are doing the backpack weights of students in Mrs. Smith's class. So you'll notice that my title is specific. It doesn't just say weight of backpacks, right? I'm telling you which specific class that's coming from. I'm making that something that if I had never seen this line plot before, I could just walk in and know what it's about. I also have a number line here, and I decided which numbers I was going to use on my number line based off of the data I collected. So the smallest numbers I have are in the 5 range, and the largest is in the 8 range. So I made my number line go from 5 to 8. You will notice there's some individual tick marks on the line. That's because we measured to the nearest fourth of a pound. That's our label, our unit. And so each of these lines represents 1/4. So before we move on, I'm actually going to finish labeling the number line. So after 5 would come 5 1/4. Next would be 5 2/4, but we know that 2/4 is the same as a half, and a half is the fraction we're going to use here. Then we have 5 3/4, 6, which is already labeled for us, 6 1/4, 6 1/2, 6 3/4. Continuing on, 7, 7 1/4, 7 1/2, 7 3/4, and then we get to 8. So the only part that we actually have not added to the line plot at this point are the X's. The X's indicate how many of each of these numbers we have. And so what we'll do is we'll look at the data we collected. You do this before you actually make the line plot, and we're going to put it or plot it on the graph. So 5 1/4. So here's my 5 1/4. I'm going to put an X above 5 1/4. And our goal here is to try to keep those X's consistent in size and as straight up as we can. And I'm just going to cross it off from my data so I know I used that, so I don't accidentally repeat or skip. Next is 5 1/2 right here. 6, 7 1/4. You get the idea. I'm going to continue doing this. I will step out of the way, give you a look at that line plot. You can see that I stacked the information vertically above one another. So the item we had the most of, the weight we had the most of, was 7 3/4 of a pound. And then there are some that actually don't have any X's above, such as 5, 6 3/4, 7, 7 1/2. We didn't have anyone whose backpack weighed that amount. That's okay. We just wanted to keep the increments consistent on our number line, which is why we've included those. So at this point, once you've made your line plot, you might get asked questions like, which was the most common weight of backpack in Mrs. Smith's class? Again, the answer would be 7 3/4. You might get asked how many kids had a backpack that weighed 6 pounds or less. So what you would do is you'd go to where the 6 is. You can see there's 2 X's there. So I'd count 1, 2, and then less would be everything to the left. So 1, 2, 3 to the left. Let me go up and point to those so you can see it a little better. 6 pounds or less. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, 5 students. I could also ask you to total up how many pounds the backpacks weighed. So what I would then do is add together 5 1/4 plus 5 1/2 plus 5 3/4 plus 6 plus 6, and continue adding the amounts that I have X's for, the number of times that I have X's for. So just so that we can kind of recap, a line plot is used to plot information that is measured numerically. It includes a specific title, a number line labeled with numbers, a label or a unit, as well as X's, which represent the data that you collect prior. I hope you find this helpful. Good luck making your line plots.